My name is Marissa Holloway, and until recently I believed in boundaries. Personal, professional, emotional, lines drawn not in sand but in stone. I'd carved mine with years of patience and hard lessons. For the last decade, I'd built a life in Boulder, Colorado that felt like mine, a messy human thing, stitched together with 6 a.m. hikes in the Flatirons, back-to-back deadlines, and the slow, deliberate joy of dining alone with a book open beside my plate. I worked as a senior project manager for a mid-sized software company called Briar Tech. A small fish in a pond big enough to dream but small enough to drown. I'd made peace with my solitude. No partner, no kids. Just me and the steady hum of my espresso machine in the morning and silence at night. I fed my hunger for control through clean Google calendars, color-coded everything, and a lunch break at exactly 12, no exceptions. That hour, my breath between storms, was sacred. And I needed it because I don't eat breakfast. Never have. Coffee in the morning, then water, nothing else until noon. My body runs on caffeine and discipline until that hour strikes, and if I skip it, my hands shake, my patience frays. It's not just food, it's fuel, it's survival. I never had the luxury of chaos. My father taught me young, order keeps the wolves out. He meant the world, of course. He died when I was 17, the same year my mother disappeared into vodka and grief. Since then, I draped structure over my life like armor. All of it worked, until Max Havorson. Max had been a mid-level analyst when I joined Briar Tech 6 years ago. Quiet, competent, vaguely smug in that way you don't notice until it's too late. I never paid him much attention. Then, 6 months ago, he got promoted to Director of Operations. My new boss. A title he wore like a crown molded from LinkedIn job descriptions and insecurity. At first, I tried to give him space. He was new in the role. It's hard, I told myself. Everyone scrambles a bit when they climb too fast, but Max didn't scramble. He strutted, and he used meetings like mirrors. He filled our schedules with jargon-heavy calls, cascading updates, and half-baked strategies we'd heard 6 months ago from someone smarter. He wanted visibility, he said. Alignment. But what he really wanted was a captive audience. The first time he booked over my lunch break, I let it slide. Maybe it was urgent. Maybe he didn't check my calendar. I even stayed quiet when it happened again that same week. But the third time I pinged him, "Hey Max, just a heads up, this meeting overlaps with my lunch block. Mind shifting it an hour earlier?" He replied within minutes. "Well, we all have to make sacrifices sometimes," he wrote. Full stop. I stared at the message, my stomach already beginning its slow revolt. That line, it wasn't a compromise, it was a command. Dismissive, clipped, the kind of thing a man says when he doesn't see you as human, just a resource with legs. I wanted to scream. Instead, I closed my laptop and walked to the kitchen. I forced myself to breathe. I told myself it was just one meeting, just 1 hour lost. But the next day, it happened again, and again. 5 days in a row, my noon refuge fell under siege, taken by Max's bloated video calls and self-congratulating performance theater. Each time, he greeted us with that smile of his, tight-lipped, slow-spreading, like he'd just remembered our names and was about to forget them again. He interrupted people mid-sentence. He asked questions, then talked over the answers. He made decisions mid-meeting, then contradicted them in emails. Worst of all, he kept calling me Marcy. No one had called me that since high school. "Thanks, Marcy, those numbers are killer." "Marcy, can you stay on after we wrap?" I corrected him once, "It's Marissa." He blinked. "Right, sorry, habit." "What habit?" By the end of the week, I sat in meetings with my camera off, hands clenched in my lap, jaw tight enough to ache. Nobody else spoke up. Some looked just as worn out. Others laughed at his jokes. I started watching the clock more than I watched the slides, and I was so hungry. Not just for food, but for respect, for autonomy, for the smallest sliver of dignity. The Friday meeting was the last straw. He booked it from 12:15 to 1:45, an hour and a half. Every other manager had declined, but I showed up, camera on. I brought with me a full plate of spaghetti and meatballs, still steaming, kissed with basil and grated parm. I twirled each bite with deliberate theater. Slurped. Chewed, my mic unmuted, my eyes locked on his. Nobody said a word for 10 minutes. Then, finally, Max spoke. "Do you have to eat during the meeting?" I swallowed slowly, wiped my chin with a linen napkin, and smiled. "Well, we all have to make sacrifices sometimes." His eyes darkened just for a second, but I caught it. That flicker. That moment when his illusion cracked. Then he moved on like I hadn't spoken. The next week, no meetings during my lunch, but that wasn't the victory. It was the moment I realized something else. He knew. He knew what he was doing before I ever pushed back. He chose to do it anyway. It wasn't about urgency or scheduling. It was about control. He saw something in my silence, and he decided to test how far he could push it. That's when the hunger changed. It wasn't lunch I craved now, it was something else, something cold and steady. I didn't want to scream or cry or run, I wanted to rearrange the game. So I sat there, fork halfway to my lips, and made a promise so quiet it echoed through my bones. He wanted performance? Then he'd get a show. This was no longer about spaghetti. This was war. It was the Monday after the barbecue smoker debacle, the one with the brisket, the disco lights, and a generous fog machine that triggered my upstairs smoke detector and sent my dog into a panic spiral. I had to mute once to chase a corgi wrapped in Christmas lights through the hallway. But I had one, hadn't I? No lunch meetings all week, not one. My calendar preserved its sacred 12 to 1, pristine and untouched, until Tuesday. The meeting request blinked on my screen like a middle finger wrapped in corporate lace. Subject, Q3 Strategic Synergy Alignment. Time, 12:05 p.m. Organizer, Brandon Keller. Brandon, my boss, nemesis. A man with bleached teeth and the emotional intelligence of a doorstop. Power drunk after his promotion, like the title VP of product gave him divine right to trample boundaries. I stared at that invite for a solid 60 seconds, then I accepted it, and I brought sushi. Full sashimi boat on dry ice. Toro unagi hamachi. A koi-shaped fountain burbled beside me. I wore a pearl-white headband and greeted the team with a reverent bow. Brandon clenched his jaw on camera. "You're doing this again?" I sliced a ribbon of salmon, dipped it in soy, and smiled. We all have to make sacrifices sometimes. Laughter broke from a few corners of the Zoom call. Camilla from QA snorted iced coffee out her nose, but Brandon didn't laugh. Later that day, he messaged me directly, "Please refrain from using video mic during lunch if you're eating during business calls. It's disruptive." I typed back, "I'll refrain when you stop scheduling meetings over my legally mandated break." Sent. No reply. The next day, another lunch meeting. I accepted. Rolled in 2 portable pizza ovens. Dough flew, cheese bubbled. I spun a Detroit-style crust into the air as I gave an update on the roadmap. By the following Friday, I'd become legend. People waited to see what I'd unveil next. Messages flooded in, "What's on the menu tomorrow? My toddler loves your meetings. Please do creme brulee, all fun, all silly," until HR called. It was Jenna, sweet, perpetually exasperated Jenna. "Look," she began, rubbing her forehead. "I'm officially required to raise a flag. Someone filed a complaint." I stiffened. "Who?" She looked tired. "Guess. Brandon. It got escalated," Jenna said, her voice dropping. "Upper management's looking into it. They're not laughing anymore." I blinked at the screen. "But I'm on my own time, my break. He's the one interrupting it." "I know," she sighed, "but he's spinning it. Saying your antics are creating a hostile environment, that your behavior is performative, undermining his authority." I scoffed. "Maybe his authority deserves to be undermined." "I agree," she said, real quiet. "But now it's policy, not personal." I ended the call with a tight jaw and a hole throbbing in my chest. That afternoon, my performance review got moved up. My name vanished from 2 high-profile projects. I got uninvited from the design sprint offsite. The cheerful Slack emojis disappeared. Camilla messaged, "Hey, are you okay?" I typed, paused, deleted. Instead, I replied, "All good, just seasoning the ribs." That night, I sat on my couch, wrapped in a blanket that smelled like mesquite and soy sauce. Half a bottle of sake sweated on the coffee table. My corgi snored at my feet, wrapped in his own private disco oblivion. What was I doing? This started as a joke, a petty rebellion, a way to carve space for my own damn lunch. Now it felt like war, and I was losing. I used to be respected, a team lead, trusted to run DMOS, do stakeholder alignment. Now I was entertainment. The girl with the fondue pot, a clown in a cooking show. I scrolled through Slack. No mentions, no DMs, only a fresh email from Brandon marked high importance. Subject, performance and professional conduct concerns CC'd. Jenna, someone from legal. My stomach dropped. I didn't open it. The next day I didn't cook. No hibachi, no smoke machines. I ate a plain turkey sandwich in silence and skipped the meeting entirely. At 12:07 p.m. Brandon messaged, "No show today." I thought we all had to make sacrifices. I read it 3 times. No emojis, no warmth, just the taste of blood behind my teeth. That Friday I got pulled into a disciplinary review. 3 people, 1 Zoom call. Jenna looked apologetic. The legal guy didn't blink once. Brandon didn't speak until the end. She's been disruptive, disrespectful, and frankly insubordinate. I opened my mouth. He raised a hand. "This isn't about lunch, it's about culture fit." Culture fit. That phrase. That antiseptic blade they used to cut people out of the fold. Not for wrongdoing, for tone, for mood. I sat there and smiled through the burn. After the call, I went for a walk, left my phone on the kitchen counter. Let the cold bite my skin and the wind rip the air straight from my lungs. I sat on a bench outside the abandoned bookstore down on Cather Street, the one with the broken neon sign and the rotting potted palms still in the window. Sat there until my palms stung from where I'd clenched them. Who was I without this job? I'd poured 3 years into it. Late nights, early mornings, no vacation. Built this product from a napkin sketch to a fully funded launch, trained new hires, covered for others, kept us afloat during the layoffs. And now they were telling me I didn't fit. Something cracked inside me, not loudly, not like glass, more like ice veining slowly through wood. When I returned home, I opened Brandon's email. It was worse than I thought. Formal warning. Impact to my bonus. Attitude noted. Improvement plan pending. My hands trembled on the keyboard. I began to type my resignation. Stopped. Deleted it all. Started something else instead. Something colder. Sharper. But I'll tell you about that soon enough. Because Act 2 doesn't end with retreat. It ends with fire. It was dead quiet in the office, just the slow hum of the monitor fans and the soft crackle of a dying candle I lit days ago and never bothered to fully blow out. Its wax had pooled and hardened into a misshapen crater along the rim. I stared at it, hollow-eyed, still dressed in a ketchup-stained chef's coat from the last meeting. I hadn't slept in over 30 hours. The last sprint review had been an absurd circus. Flaming skewers, a sashimi buffet, and a hired taiko drummer who punctuated every project milestone with a booming strike. People clapped. Screenshots went viral. Even HR chimed in with memes. But when all the laughter faded and the video call ended, I just sat there, cooling in the glow of the lava grill, alone. The fuel of petty joy had run dry. My apartment reeked of smoke, soy sauce, and defeat. All of it had started so small, just a quiet rebellion. A spoonful of spaghetti during a disrespectful meeting. It wasn't supposed to become a traveling food festival. I never wanted to be entertainment. I just wanted my hour of peace. What had I become? I thought I was fighting back. But somewhere along the way, I stopped defending my dignity and started performing my humiliation. My boss, Nathaniel Triggs, head of product strategy, he kept winning, even while I thrashed in flames and fondue. His meetings stopped interfering with my lunch, yes, but he'd framed it all as a culture win. Said I showed engagement under pressure during critical initiatives. He even nominated me for an internal award. I was now officially a brand mascot. He used my rebellion as evidence of his innovative leadership. And somehow I let him. Nate always knew how to twist the room with a smirk. 38 years old, always polished, always a half step ahead. He called people champ, tiger, rock star. Everyone liked him until they didn't. He sold charm like it was a stock and cashed out just before it crashed. In every meeting, he wielded one phrase sharper than any insult. We all have to make sacrifices. I'd repeated that line too, like it meant something. But today, in the silence, I realized what it actually was. A collar, a leash, a command disguised as a compromise, and I'd worn it willingly. I stood up, my knees cracking like old wood. I peeled the chef's coat off, balled it into the trash can. The gold chopsticks followed. Then the wrinkled kimono. Gone. I stripped myself of every layer of theater. I needed to see this for what it was, not just a lunch hour feud. A system that used compliance and charisma to starve us of boundaries, 1 inch at a time. The folder sat in my inbox for 2 weeks before I finally opened it. I'd forgotten all about it. Project Echo, Resource Alignment Proposal Draft. Nate had sent it accidentally during a late-night flurry, or maybe someone CC'd me by mistake. Either way, I left it alone until now. Inside were timelines, backlogs, and a budget spreadsheet deeply out of sync with reality. I scrolled, blinking, then scrolled again slower. The numbers didn't add up. He had shifted our headcount allocation twice, then massaged the JIRA velocity reports to hide the slowdown. Worse, he'd siphoned contractor hours from another project to inflate hours, claiming cross-functional innovation. In short, he cooked the books. That's why the deadlines kept shrinking. That's why there were so many urgent meetings. That's why I hadn't had lunch in peace for weeks. He needed airtight optics, and we were his human smoke machine. I leaned back, heart hammering like a drum. He didn't care about the product. He just needed to frame it as a success long enough to get that promotion to VP. And the only thing standing between him and that sleek title was our suffering. I let out a shaky breath. Anger stirred, not hot, not wild, but slow and sharp, like glass under skin. No more performances. No more props. He thought this company was his runway. Time to show him what happens when the spotlight turns. I started small, cleaned my desk, removed all the ridiculous kitchen gear. I reset the webcam to a neutral angle. I returned to normal, boring, silent, unremarkable. Nate barely noticed. Then I reached out to Jonah in engineering. Soft-spoken, precise, always 2 steps ahead in sprint planning. She hated chaos. "Hey," I said. "Do you remember that resource forecast Nate showed us last quarter?" "Yeah," she said warily. "Why? I've got questions about it, serious ones." I shared the file. She went quiet. 30 minutes later, she messaged back with a trail of red flags and an angry emoji she'd never used before. Then came Ravi from QA, then Tamaz from DevOps. One by one, I pulled the thread until the whole weave unraveled. Misallocations. Fabricated burned-on progress. Even a falsified client testimonial. We didn't scream, we didn't gossip. We documented, we wrote it all down. Calm, clean, inarguable, I called it the lunch debt ledger, because every meeting he stole from us became part of this report. Every sacrifice he demanded rolled into this final bill. No drama, no flaming grills, just numbers, emails, and receipts. On Friday morning, we booked the meeting. Not with Nate. With Olivia Tran, Director of Operations. The only executive who didn't drink Nate's Kool-Aid. We laid it out point by point, page by page. She didn't interrupt. Her eyes narrowed, lines deepening at the corners. At the end, she said 2 words, "Leave it with me," and that was it. We walked out of that meeting as one. No applause, no sashimi, just silence, the good kind this time, the clean air after a rainstorm. For the first time in months, I felt real. Solid, not a joke, not a meme. I went home and cooked a simple lunch. No fireworks, no costumes. Just grilled cheese and tomato soup, and as I took the first bite, I knew exactly what came next. Monday morning, I wore a black sweater, unmarked. Plain, I logged into the meeting Nate called probably some Hail Mary effort to polish his story one last time before review board. His camera clicked on. Confident smile in place. "Hey, gang," he said. "Let's circle up." No one spoke. He kept going. "First, just want to say I'm proud of how far we've come." Then Olivia's name blinked into the call. His face twitched when he saw it. I leaned forward. "Let's begin," I said calmly. "We've got a lot to go over today. No fear, no turning back. I'm Parker Lynn, 33, based in the rust-edged tech town of Brindle Hollow, north enough to snow, south enough to sweat. I'm a project manager with a sharp memory and a sharper jawline, allergic to injustice and mid-meeting hunger. My boss, Callum Reeve, newly promoted, ego-flushed and blind to boundaries, decided lunch breaks were optional as long as they weren't his. His flaw? Insecurity masked by dominance wrapped in faux motivation. Nemesis to me the moment he said, "We all have to make sacrifices," while spooning yogurt at 11:59 and moving my calendar block again. I'd played the long game, sarcasm draped in marinara, meetings lit by pork belly and paprika, slow roasts of both meat and morale. But now the charade of culinary chaos had to crescendo. Justice needed more than seasoning. It needed flame. The plan kicked off with an invite. Mandatory alignment session. 12:00 to 1:30. Main program team only. Sent by Callum. Subject line, quarterly visioneering plus sprint forward session. I RSVP'd with a smile. This would be the last lunch he stole without consequence. That morning, I wheeled in the final stage of my revenge, a full teppanyaki setup. Polished steel table, propane-fed fire line set just so. Chrome knives. Shrimp pre-gutted, scallops trimmed by hand. The hibachi chef, hired, certified, dressed to kill with a monogrammed headband and knives that glinted like promises. The backdrop? A banner unfurled across my wall. "We all have to make sacrifices, CALLUM. He wouldn't see it immediately. That was the best part. At 11:58, I joined early. Camera on, apron tied. The chef, Takashi, already flipping oil in slow arcs. The steel hissed alive. By 12:04, everyone filed in like office ducks, coffee cups in hand, eye bags stitched below blue light stairs. Then Callum arrived. Afternoon all, he barked, eyes fixed on his slides. "Let's push through lunch so we can wrap ahead of burnout. Remember, we're adults, not interns." I stayed quiet, nodding as Takashi lit the flame. Foom. The teppan flared gold, licking the space between us. Half the meeting gasped. Sound traveled like thunder in a tin can. Callum froze. "Parker," he blinked. "What the hell is that?" "Chef Takashi," I said calmly. "He's here for the quarterly visioneering session. We're making hibachi. Very strategic." "Turn it off," Callum hissed. "This is a professional environment." I turned the lens a little, revealing shrimp bouncing like jazz on the steel, onion volcano stacked and smoking. The banner gleamed behind me. Someone snorted. Then another. Finally, Mallory from QA cracked. "Oh my God." You actually did it. Callum stared harder. Parker, end this right now or I'm contacting HR. No need, I said, reaching down. Look who's here. From below the frame, I lifted a tray, a boxed lunch, not for me, for him, each compartment filled with his sins, missed breaks, mandatory overtime, shuffled deadlines, unacknowledged labor, printed screenshots, calendar invites stamped 12:00 p.m. mandatory, Slack messages where I begged not to be scheduled through lunch, his replies. We all have to make sacrifices. You'll be fine, Parker, eat later. And the one that broke me, lunch breaks aren't sacred. One by one, I read them aloud. The team sat in stunned silence. Outside, the fire sizzled as scallops hit the oil. Inside, the air thickened. Do you honestly think this is acceptable? Callum's voice wavered. I met his gaze. Do you think your leadership is? The meeting splintered. I've skipped meals for months, Mallory said hotly, pulling off her glasses. Because of your overflow sessions. I literally passed out last quarter, Jenna whispered. Thought it was the heat, it was blood sugar. You scheduled right through my therapy hour, Nikhil chimed in. Even when I told you. The screen fractured into confessions, each one a match tossed onto the old thatch of his authority. Callum turned pale. This isn't the time or place, it's the only time you've left us, I cut in. And this is exactly the place. Silence again, only the hiss of searing butter under Takashi's blade. The camera lingered on him as he sliced the final piece. Then I leaned back. This is your reckoning, Callum. He left the call without a word. A week later, he was reassigned. HR called it strategic restructuring. I knew better. They'd received a file, compiled, time-stamped, every abuse of boundaries documented with precision. The culmination of months of gaslight and granola bars. At first, the emptiness surprised me. No rage left, no guilt either, just a strange quiet. My inbox fluttered with thank yous, messages from across departments. People I'd never met. Thank you for standing up, you made space for all of us. And one from Mallory, because of you I made my daughter lunch, first time in months. That one wrecked me. I didn't do this for glory. I did it because I was hungry, tired of swallowing pride between slices of stale bread. The world shifted, subtly. Meetings returned to humane hours. Lunch breaks reappeared like wildflowers after frost. Even the interns spoke louder now. I dismantled the teppanyaki station a week later. Takashi left me his headband, said I'd earned it. Sometimes I wear it while I microwave leftovers just to remember who I became when fire met injustice. The final twist? Callum emailed me. Subject line, lunch? I didn't reply. Some appetites deserve to stay hungry, and some sacrifices, once made, never return.